I'm William, and today we journey into the silent, shadowed corridors of Egypt's oldest royal tombs, where walls are carved with the earliest known funerary texts, the Pyramid Texts. These words, etched into stone more than 4 millennia ago, were never meant to be read by the living. They were spells, prayers, and commands for kings to navigate the perilous journey to the afterlife, and for centuries nobody could decipher them. Imagine walking deep into a pyramid's burial chamber. The air is still, the only light a faint flicker revealing lines of strange symbols, marching across the walls like an unending chant. These aren't decorative hieroglyphs, they're a coded language, a sacred manual written to guide the pharaoh through the heavens, guard against cosmic threats, and ensure he joined the gods for eternity. The pyramid texts first appear in the tomb of Pharaoh Unas, the last ruler of Egypt's 5th dynasty. Unlike the elaborate painted scenes we see in later tombs, these inscriptions are stark, pure hieroglyphs chiseled directly into limestone. They include over 700 spells, each with a precise purpose, summoning protective deities, opening the gates of the sky, even instructing the king on how to transform into a falcon or a beam of sunlight. But the true story is even more fascinating. For centuries after their creation, these texts remained hidden. When later generations built pyramids, they often left the walls bare or replaced the content with new traditions. The original words, locked in darkness, became a mystery even to the Egyptians themselves. By the time archaeologists uncovered them in the late 19th century, no living person, Egyptian or otherwise, had read them for thousands of years. Why were they so complex? In part because they were never designed for casual reading. The language is archaic, the grammar unlike that of later hieroglyphic writing. Scholars believe this was intentional, creating a sacred, unchanging code that separated the divine knowledge of kings from the everyday words of mortals. And there's a curious twist. Many of the spells in the pyramid texts seem to reference rituals older than the pyramids themselves. It's as if the scribes were preserving fragments of an even more ancient religious tradition, one already fading into myth when they were carved. Could these lines be echoes from Egypt's first kings, or even from before recorded history? Archaeologists also noticed something unusual. The placement of spells often follows symbolic geography. Spells for protection against earthly dangers are placed near the entrance passages. Those for celestial ascent cluster around the burial chamber, as if mapping the king's journey from the world of the living to the realm of the gods. The secrets behind this layout might surprise you. Some researchers propose that the positioning was more than symbolic. It could have been part of a spiritual technology, a way to activate the spells through the very architecture of the pyramid. The shape, the alignment with the stars, and the inscribed words all working together to transform stone into a vessel for immortality. And yet, for all their grandeur, the pyramid texts were deeply personal. Many spells speak directly to the king, using his name, commanding him to rise, to eat the bread of the gods, to breathe the air of the sky. In these words, we glimpse a pharaoh not as a distant ruler, but as a man confronting death, preparing for a voyage from which no mortal returns. Still, one question lingers. If these spells were so vital to a pharaoh's eternal life, why were they abandoned in later periods? Some believe the answer lies in the changing role of the afterlife in Egyptian society. The pyramid texts were exclusive, crafted only for the king and perhaps a select few royal family members. But over time, beliefs shifted. The afterlife became more democratic, and spells once reserved for pharaohs began appearing in the coffins of nobles and officials. These evolved forms became known as the Coffin Texts, and later the famous Book of the Dead. Yet this transition only deepens the mystery. If the pyramid texts were once considered the pinnacle of sacred knowledge, why alter them? Did priests feel the old magic was no longer effective? Or had the very nature of divine kingship changed, making such secret spells obsolete? The content of the pyramid texts is anything but obsolete to modern scholars. They are a treasure trove of ancient cosmology, describing a universe alive with gods, spirits, and celestial hazards. Some passages speak of the pharaoh sailing across the sky in a solar boat alongside Ra. Others describe him ascending as a star, joining a constellation of divine kings. There are even sections where the king devours the gods themselves, absorbing their power in an act both shocking and symbolic. The imagery is rich and strange: crocodiles in the sky, stairways of light, the swallowing of stars. And while some of it might sound alien to us, each phrase reflects a worldview in which life, death, and the cosmos were woven into a single, seamless whole. Archaeologists have found that the hieroglyphs of the pyramid texts were often carved with extraordinary care, even in places no human eye was ever meant to see again. This devotion hints at the sincerity of belief, the idea that these spells had power whether or not anyone witnessed them. The act of inscribing them was itself a magical act, sealing the king's path to eternity. But the true power of the pyramid texts may lie in what they reveal about ancient Egypt's relationship with death. These were not simply expressions of grief or hope. They were instructions, strategies, a carefully planned itinerary for the most important journey a king would ever take. In every line, there is urgency, the need to act swiftly after death, to avoid traps, to claim one's rightful place among the immortals. And there is one final layer to consider. Some Egyptologists argue that the pyramid texts were not just for the dead king, but for the living kingdom. By placing these divine words within the pyramid, the pharaoh was transforming his tomb into a cosmic anchor, ensuring that his rule and the cosmic order it upheld would continue even after his body lay silent. In this way, the pyramid texts were as much a political act as a spiritual one. Today we can read them, translate them, even stand in the very chambers where they were carved. But in doing so, we step into a space that was once closed to all but the dead and the divine. The meaning of the pyramid texts has been partially unlocked, yet their deepest significance, the way they were felt, feared, and believed in by those who created them, remains just beyond our reach. And perhaps that's as it should be. These spells were not meant for us. They were meant for kings, for gods, for a journey across the stars. We are only visitors, catching fragments of a conversation between a pharaoh and eternity.